Hi guys, my name is Isaiah. I'm Syed. I'm the CEO, co-founder of a company, life sciences company here in New York called Mend. Today, we're going to talk about the unsustainable healthcare crisis that we're in and what we can do about it. We're going to talk about the fact that we have the highest healthcare costs and yet we're sick and getting sicker, and how we can reduce our reliance and reliance on politicians and government and take more ownership of our health ourselves.
Welcome back to our delicious conversation with Isaiah Sayed. He is the co-founder of Mend, a digital health and nutrapharma company who partners with pro sports teams, multiple high-profile pro sports teams, the U.S. military, and leading doctors and hospitals across the U.S. in really confronting the medical crisis that we're already in and the implications of what is going to happen as we move forward. In the past, part one of the show, we talked about some of those implications, including that 50% of doctors are going to be on that 50, are going to be on the retirement age of 65 very, very soon. And we're going to have a massive shortage of doctors, that nurses are leaving the industry entirely due to burnout. 30% of them are walking away. And just the whole system is under so much pressure. And at the same time, it's because we have a sick care system rather than a healthcare system. And his company and his organization are doing a lot to really hold us accountable to that, to our own health. And in part one, we talked about how there's no shortage of knowledge. We all know what we're supposed to do, yet we're not doing it. So that's where I want to come back to it. So why are, from all of your research, why are we as sick as we are today? I mean, we talked about the glycemic levels. We've talked about manufactured food that's not whole and how that impacts us. But why do you see what's really showing up about why we're as sick as we are today? And what can we immediately do about it? Like for my listener.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you zoom out and look at kind of human history through sort of an evolutionary time scale, you'll find something very striking, and that is that the vast majority of our time, maybe 99% of our history as a species, was spent as hunter-gatherers in a kind of a very consistent environment. That environment meant that we had to, hunt and gather. That's how we ate. We ate berries and we ate whole foods and nuts and so on and so forth. And occasionally, when we had to kill, we would eat game. And so our lives consisted of a very consistent environment with whole foods. And then on comes sort of the agricultural revolution, and then we start to kind of put food under lock and key, and then try to transform the nature of food and our relationship with food. And also change the environments around us quite dramatically, where instead of, in a prior environment where the source of stress might have been, the saber-toothed tiger, the source of stress now is bills, or, the boss that I don't like at work, or, the bad sort of news that I'm reading on the internet. And so the convergence of kind of these factors, where we completely fundamentally change the food that we eat, from eating whole foods to highly manufactured foods that have, quite frankly, very low nutritive value, or nutrient poor in terms of quality, and actually contain things that are very harmful to us. So that's kind of the primary driver, is that the nature of our food fundamentally changed, and it changed to something that's very, very unhealthy for us. The second thing is, we went from being active and outdoors to being inactive and indoors, doing what you and I are doing right now, which is, sitting for long hours indoors, and taking, our snacks in between our meetings. And then the third, I think, is that the nature of stress has changed. It's a very different type of stress. It's omnipresent. It's coming at us from multiple angles. And when you converge all of those into a single, sort of a set of pressures that is on our biology, it's not hard to imagine why disease would arise, right? So I think it's a combination of things that we have to be very mindful of, that through an evolutionary time scale and lens, our bodies just haven't had a time to adjust. This has happened in a nanosecond, in a fraction of a second. And so our systems aren't designed to deal with the environments and how radically they've changed around us.
So of course that, the I think one of the things you mentioned that I think is really important that we forget. We have this idea of the saber-toothed tiger, and that is mentioned in everybody's lexicon of language around stress. But the modern saber-toothed tiger, particularly as we record this, is the potential of debt and the potential of homelessness. That's as you said, it's omnipresent. And on top of that, you've got Fox News and MSNBC and CNN, and everybody is throwing us all about all these things at us constantly around stress. And it's what I talked about when I asked you about the meaning of your life. I mean, everything has meaning, and yet nothing has any bloody meaning. But at the level of cortisol and stress on the body, we're in this constant state of stress. And we know, I know that people eat as a stress relief because it is a drug. That release of dopamine as we have our sugars or our favorite foods, that is also, we're combating stress with something that is going to kill us and is killing us. Let me rephrase that it is actually killing us. So when it comes to all that, again, we can wave the magic wand and go, okay, well, now everybody's got the information, they can do better, but they're not doing better. They're not, and the information's not new, that you're eating out of stress and you're eating processed foods, and you really shouldn't be, because that shit's killing you. And you've got a system that's not healthcare, but sick care. All right. We're still at the same place of how do we get people to pay attention? Because from my point of view, and we can look at this in one or two ways, which is how do we get people to pay attention? But the other side of it is, from my point of view, is I have always said this about life. No one's coming to rescue you. No one. And I think that in a lot of ways, people think that the American healthcare system is going to come and rescue them. It's not. It might if you're a billionaire. It might even if you're quite well off. But everybody's one sickness away from bankruptcy in the United States, one serious sickness. So there's the political agenda, and then there's the personal accountability. And both of those things combined are devastating. So we obviously, in the short term, can't do much about the political agenda, but we can do something about the accountability. How do we get the average person, the average people who work for me, who are in my downline, who are, who answer to me, who answer to the leaders inside of my organization, how do I get them to take responsibility? Because we know, if you look at the pictures of beaches in the 70s versus beaches today, obesity is everywhere. So what do we do?
Yeah. Look, I think, personal accountability. Yeah. Unfortunately, personal accountability ultimately is the short-term answer. And unfortunately, we still face this challenge where, far too many aren't seeing the imminent threat to themselves that this really is. Every time you go and indulge in the donuts or whatever you're eating, the crappy food constantly around as you go. I walk into my grocery store, and immediately in the aisles right beside the counter is the chocolate bars and the muffins and the poison that's sitting there constantly. So, look, I think as a society, we need to make a decision about elevating the importance of getting the poisons out of our system in the first place. Far too many of our foods are filled with things that are really quite damaging to us, and we do have the education, the awareness, the information to be able to start to advocate for removing some of these poisons from our environments. I think the leadership that is responsible for helping guide our policy making really needs to take some of these issues extremely seriously. I've been talking about the amount of excessive sugar in our diets. And we have all the tools to solve for that. We can remove and start to reduce. Why do we label cigarettes with these warning labels that say this is poison that you're ingesting? but we can't do the same for things like sugar in Coca-Cola, where a single bottle of Coca-Cola, you're ingesting, dozen tablespoons of sugar. We can certainly make those types of decisions and changes. But ultimately, it's about
right there, you're being rational and logical.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but that's where the whole thing falls apart, because that's not how it works. The government is in bed with the sugar industry, with the corn industry. It's making lots of money through that. Those companies are making lots of money. They are lobbying to create laws. So the average person in the street feels powerless. And even though they might be aware, they're still feeling the day-to-day stress and going, but I just feel like I need a donut because I'm trying to ease some of my emotional pain. So that's what I'm saying about where we started right at the beginning, is that we're in this dichotomy, this internal struggle of knowing something's bad, but we're in a system that seems like people can't get out of it. I know, and I want to be clear, I know that what you're doing with Mend is offering people a way to create an accountability system. And I think that that's probably the most important thing here, is that people have to, it's like I trained lifting weights and doing other sports, martial arts, boxing and all that. And I did that for so long, and nothing needed to motivate me. I could get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and go do that gym. But as I've gotten older, I need more motivation to go do it. And ultimately, I need a partner. I need an accountability partner who's going to meet me there, that I don't want to let down, and who doesn't want to let me down, who's going to do that. And it seems like that's what you're trying to do with Mend, is to have people feel like, because everybody feels so isolated. Is that, am I misunderstanding? Is that a big part of
No,
it?
you're absolutely right, Jeff. So one of the things that we recognize is the intractable problem that you're talking about, which is, how do you get people actually motivated? And so one of the in our business model, what we recognized was when someone's been through a really challenging health event. I'll give you my brother as an example. My eldest brother, was neglecting his health. He wasn't exercising. He was eating, crappy food, and lo and behold, he got sick. Right, so he had to have a gallbladder removed. Oh boy, was he a different person the next day. Right after having his gallbladder removed, all of a sudden the gym became important and eating healthy became important and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, human nature is such that until it impacts us personally and in a very significant way, a lot of times we don't take it seriously. So in our model and in our environment, what we do is when the person is having an acute event, we recognize that as an opportunity to create profound lifestyle changes in that person. And so that's where we take over and we create lasting behavioral changes in that patient, so they don't end up back in the hospital. Now, that doesn't solve for not getting in the hospital in the first place.
No.
And so, that's where, lots and lots of incentives for people to have an accountability partner, I think, could be incredibly valuable. What gets me to sign up for a gym partner or a trainer that really then holds me to that responsibility. That is really, I think, part of the key to unlocking all of this. And how do we make that an affordable mechanism where there is someone that can just really shepherd you, push you, encourage you? I think that can unlock a lot of value in society.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, what I know, there's, we're talking about a healthcare crisis, but we have a loneliness crisis, which is also affecting healthcare. We know that loneliness is impacting people's immune systems to the level of 15 cigarettes a day. I mean, that's pretty serious. I can't imagine smoking 15 cigarettes a day, what the damage would be from that. But learning that loneliness is the same level of impact is pretty profound for most people. So even having, I know, because I'm on the psychology side of it, I know there are people who go to the doctor because they get to see somebody. There's just some kind of interaction that is so important to human beings. We need a community. We need to connect. And I think that many people are sick because they unconsciously, there's nothing conscious about it, but unconsciously, if I'm sick, I have relationships. I have people who are around me. I got doctors, I got nurses, I got people who are trying to take care of me. And so psychological driver is there. And so what I like about what you're doing with Mend is there's a psychological community of people who are helping me to stay well rather than waiting for me to get sick to be my community. So you have a community of wellness as opposed to a community of sick care. Is that correct? Have I got that right around your organization?
You're absolutely right. There's a whole body of science around patient activation in the world of acute care, and lifting patient activation actually has profound impacts on the overall outcomes in health. It's nature, it's closeness to family, it's access to people. There was a study done out of NYU Langone that looked at the incidence rate of readmissions of patients for post having surgery, because a lot of the surgeries are moving to outpatient surgery. And they concluded that the main driver of that was lack of social support.
Yeah.
So if you can give people the social support, then you can avoid a lot of significant downstream health complications just by giving that social support. So we know all these things matter, and yet we completely ignore them in our healthcare environment. Just having plants around, we know has a profound impact, trees and air and plants and water. And yet we don't emphasize those things and exposure to those things in healthcare. So these are the changes that we need to make. These are big shifts and changes we absolutely have to introduce.
Yeah, there's a big movement in Japan around
forest bathing,
which is simply going out and being around trees, and because and again, that's scientifically proven now. It's no longer, oh, that's a bit woo-woo. It's science. That has a direct impact on your body, on your immune system, and even better if you can do it in bare feet, because then you're grounded as well.
Correct.
Correct. Like the benefits to your immune system are vast. But we live in concrete buildings. I do. We live in concrete buildings. We sit on our ass, and we're on Zoom or we're in front of our computer. We're not going out and doing manual labor, and we think we've done well if we went for a walk around the block. As opposed to,
we didn't talk to our neighbors. Dev, I was walking down my hallway here in New York the other day, and I had a lady that I was walking behind, and we proceeded to walk because I have a fairly long hallway. Continue walking, and she looked back and thought I was perhaps following her. It just happened to be that we actually lived across the hallway from each other. And that was the first time we were acknowledging each other's existence. So our relationships and our sense of community and how close we are with each other is completely evaporated and vanished. We don't even know who's living beside us. And so all of these incredibly profound, important things for our health are absent. And so, utilizing tools and technology that we are utilizing to give, our patients a sense of closeness and community with their care providers, we know is going to have a profound impact.
Yeah. And it's vitally, vitally important. I was flying to Dallas last week, and I was sitting next to somebody, and as you do in a plane, and you're like, most of the times we fly, we don't even talk to the other person. I mean, how could you be any closer that you're so close it's bloody uncomfortable, and we don't talk to that person? But I'm sitting next to a lady who is a Chinese lady, who is 82 years old, and next to her is a guy who's 57 years old. Yes, I know their ages. And finding out where they were from and how they were brought up, and them, talking about, and we all discovered all these wonderful things that we had in common. Three of us, three different age brackets, all having a conversation, all been married to people who were not our own people, all cross marriages. And I said, this is the UN right here in this seat. But we wouldn't have known that, if we'd have just been the way we've been so conditioned to isolate ourselves, and yet we so deeply crave to connect, and that so much of our personal responsibility in our healthcare requires us to reach out and connect with other people. But we're all been trained to believe that if we do that, we're going to get rejected. Well, you might, but you also might get accepted, and you might have a wonderful conversation. This 82-year-old lady sat next to me and said, "This is the best conversation I've had in 10 years. Right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about music. We're talking about politics. We're talking about culture. We're talking about religion. In this flight, we're having all those conversations.
I mean, just think about that, and it left such an impression on you that you're talking about it today. And I've had multiple of those myself, where I can remember this really cute elderly couple, and the husband had dozed off and he was sleeping, and she goes, "We still love each other today. All 30 years, 40 years, whatever it was that they'd been married." And it was just adorable. And we talked about all manner of their relationships, and the conversation that we had in that hour or so that we were in the plane together enriched my life. And guess what? It actually contributed to my well-being. And that's the thing. These things that
That's the
contribute
key
to our
I'm
well-being.
trying to get people to grasp here.
Yeah.
Is I like, it would be wonderful if there was a system, and I know that these systems are coming, but if there was a system in that moment that you could look at your watch or your phone or wherever it says your immune system just went up, right? Your immunity just went up. And you go, well, I'm just sitting there on the plane. I didn't take any meds. I didn't take any supplements. Oh, it was connection, right? Your immune system, your blood pressure just went down. Your serotonin levels went up. Your dopamine levels just went up. Your cortisol levels just went down. All those things would change, and it's coming. I know that we're on the brink of that, which is wonderful, but we have to grasp that now as we're moving towards a greater healthcare crisis. That is, where do you see that? I mean, as we get towards the end here, tell me where you see all that going when we look at, the potential, not crisis, but collapse of the American healthcare system.
Yeah, it's truly frightening. Unfortunately, the numbers are not encouraging when we look at it. And I think you call it, sort of this cabal of psychosis, or whatever language you use to describe the situation that we're in. There isn't look, I like innovation technology. That's kind of where I've spent my career. And so I always believe that human ingenuity has capacity to solve a lot of the problems that we face. But the system, the food system that we've created is a huge intractable problem. And I'm not sure there's any easy answer for that. The profit-making system in healthcare that we've created is a huge intractable problem. But I do think there is enormous opportunity in innovation and technology from entrepreneurs that can give us tools and capabilities to start to take ownership of our own health. I'll just give you an example. Like I'm in New York City. It's noisy, it's loud, but I sleep with this eye mask on that has built-in headphones, and I use it to meditate every single night before I fall asleep. On WhatsApp, we talked about community, the importance of relationships. I have all of my cousins and my family in a WhatsApp group, and we're chattering, throughout the day, if not on a daily basis, certainly on a weekly basis. So there are tools and technologies, and then exposure to nature, right? So there are a lot of ways we can kind of biohack and trick the mind into being exposed to nature-like environments. We're starting to design societies to be, more and more exposed to parks and nature. There are things that we can do that are small wins that will have actually very significant impacts. Then I think the onus is, and the incumbent is on, I believe, the private sector to help us navigate and solve for some of these health challenges. So, I woke up one day and was not satisfied with the level of care that I got, that my brother got, that my mom got, and said, I need to do something about this. And here I am today doing something about it. And we're hearing from our patients that we're having a big impact on their health. So I think there's a lot that we can do in the innovation and entrepreneur community to help solve some of these challenges.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think that, as I said before, I think that people have been waiting around for the government to solve the problem. And it's just not going to happen. So it is upon us, this is in essence a business show, but it is upon us as business leaders to look at, what can we do about it? And it can be, a very profitable business that isn't about ripping off the public, that isn't about tearing people down, but actually building them up, that we can make a significant difference. And I appreciate that that's what you're doing, and that's what your company Mend is about. And again, that's mend.me, not any other one. So mend.me. I appreciate that that's what you're doing about it, because it is, I think it's one thing to say your health is your responsibility, Fred, Susan, whoever you may be. But it's also been fed into people that they're kind of powerless in the process. And what I like about what you're doing and other entrepreneurs are doing is saying your health is your responsibility, but you're not on your own, right? And you can't rely on a government that is battling with lobbyists every single day who are lobbying for your ill health so that they can buy another yacht. I'm sorry, I know it sounds horrible, but that is how it is. And so having that sense of personal responsibility, personal accountability, a way to tap in, I think is vitally important. So I appreciate that. And thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And, I think you talked a little bit about kind of the role of, us as leaders in the business world and the value and importance we place on this. And I just want to accentuate that, us as leaders of enterprise, what are we doing for the wellness of our employees? And I think that's got to be another shift that comes on how much importance we place on that going forward.
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go with my last question, which is, what can we as leaders do? What can we do, preferably in the next 5 minutes after listening, but certainly in the next 24 hours, to become proactive, to do something that can make this shift so that if there is not just a healthcare crisis, which there already is, but a collapse, what can we do to sort of prep ourselves, prep our people to move to a better space?
Yeah, I mean, why as business leaders can't we take a more proactive role in the well-being of our? We spend an extraordinary amount of time, at the workplace and in our professional environments. And why is it that we can't raise the bar of responsibility for the employer to take a much more active role in the well-being of their employees? And I think we can. I think we can take on a little more cost into our environments to provide for solutions that are actually not that costly at the end of the day to improve the well-being of our employees, and will yield significant dividends and ROI as a result of that. But the changes that we personally need to make to take accountability for our own health are really not that hard when you think about it. Quality sleep and enough sleep. It's decent amount of physical activity every single day, ingesting things that we know that are really important, like vitamin D. We know is an important compound, and that we're all deficient in that. We know, for example, having a certain amount of omega-3s is important. Having that in our diet, eating more whole foods, and starting to avoid some of the crappy manufactured foods. These are not difficult changes to make, but they're difficult if you try to do it all at once. Mm-hmm. So if we start to introduce small, minor changes, like I've made a habit now, every single week I start on Sundays, and then I do it like 2 times a week. I make a shake that has it has cruciferous vegetables in it. It has beets, it has olive oil, it has garlic, it has a pepper in it. And I make a jug of it, and I have one every single day. I have 2 tablespoons full of olive oil. It's easy. It's become a habit. I do it now without thinking about it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like effort. So when we start to do these things that are really simple changes that can have profound impact on our health, we all can do it. They're not hard things to do, but we have to start with small little baby steps.
I think that's a very good place for people to start the process, is understanding that we all are trying to fix our health, and many people throw their hands up saying it's too much and I got too many things. But the truth is, you can start with one thing. You can start with taking a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and lemon juice,
absolutely,
in the morning with some warm water, and just start taking care of your gut health at that simple level. By there is all kinds of little things, as you said. Sleep hygiene can be helpful. Not the rule of 3 hours before you go to sleep, don't eat. 2 hours before you go to sleep, no drinking, and 1 hour before you go to sleep, no screens. It's the 3, 2, 1. It's a simple thing. Can you do it? Well, maybe not, but you can start doing it a bit and get a little bit better at it. And just picking one discipline at a time to do that's where it all starts. And I think that we all get overwhelmed with feeling we got to change everything, when in fact, all we got to do is one thing to just make a little bit of difference. And actually, if you just do one thing, the cool thing I like about that is, people say to me, does this supplement work? Because I take a lot of supplements. And I go, honestly, I don't know anymore. And that's the truth, because I take so many things and different things that I've done research on over the years. But if you take one thing or you do one thing and you do that consistently for 2 weeks, you will know that worked for me, because there's nothing else interfered. It's like, oh, so now that worked for me. I'm feeling 10% better. Now I can add another thing, and you can actually measure it very well, so it can be very productive. It's really good. Thank you, sir.
Couldn't agree with you more. Little changes lead to lasting big changes, and that can have a very profound impact. So start introducing those little changes today.
That's it. And I want to thank you for being with us today. Thank you for all the knowledge and wisdom that you've shared with us. Again, please tell people where they can find out more about you, about your organization, and about how to possibly reach out to you, whether that's through social media, LinkedIn, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, my name is Isaiah Syed. I lead a company called Mend. We're a life sciences, health tech, digital wellness, and NutriPharma company based in New York City. Our URL is mend.me, and I can be reached at Isaiah, EZIAH, at mend.me. And thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
It's been a pleasure, sir, and I hope you'll stay with us to the end. For you, dear listener, please remember that those who control the meaning for the tribe also control the movement of the tribe. Think about your tribe and what's driving them, because business and political leaders committed to positively shaping the political and business landscape know that they've got to tap into what drives human beings. To learn how you can tap into this groundbreaking understanding, simply reach out to me at dov@dovbaron.com. I am Dov Baron. I show businesses, teams, and leaders how to harness their emotional source code to move their tribe, because unified actualized meaning is the single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for all individuals and companies. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious how you can, quote, mend your health, how you can take responsibility for your health, and that you can't wait for them to come and rescue you. It's one step at a time. Yes, we're in a healthcare crisis already, but if this keeps going, it will be a healthcare collapse, and we have got to take care of ourselves, and we've got to be in a self-responsibility level. And for that reason, I encourage you to not wait another moment. I am Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest meaning to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.